Dear brothers, another week in the book, boys, which is just crazy to consider. But I was diving through a bunch of strength books, actually, the last week, just kind of prepping for conversations and as just a reminder of certain aspects of training that I needed a little brush up on, if you will. And as a general recommendation, in whatever field that you're in, you should be constantly revisiting old textbooks, old pieces of literature, utilizing YouTube or the Googles or the Gemini craziness that Google just came out with or whatever else they've got coming out. This AI stuff is a little wild. But you should always be revisiting stuff or always constantly pursuing whatever the next piece of good knowledge is that you can find, updating your information to be as good as it can be in whatever your field is. And so as I was kind of banging through those books, I kept thinking to myself that some of the information that we still utilize today, especially in the field of strength and conditioning, is super old. Some of the concepts, how we utilize models, is some of that stuff is going back to biblical times. And so what it got me thinking about was none of the information that we have or that we present to people. So I talk to you guys on here all the time about various topics. We talk mostly about men, performance, being better men. And, none of those ideas that I come up with on here are 100% my own. They are really just more of what other people have come up with in some capacity and I have put together and presented to you. And I think that this morning I want us to take a little bit of a piece of humble pie maybe. And this message is to me as much as it is to anybody else, that nothing that we say or we do, especially our successes, none of those things are of our own idea bank. That was a nice loss of voice there this morning. But nothing that we have is we own, if you will. We are the first creator of it. All of our thoughts, all of our actions, all of our successes is an amalgamation of what we've learned from other people. It's a collection of something that they thought, and what they thought is a collection of what others thought. And the reason that matters is because we can get so caught up in my podcast, my business, my job, my family, it's very my driven, right? It's very ownership driven. Like you own these things. And I know I've dabbled on here a little bit with Stoic philosophy, and they talk a lot about how you don't own anything. Everything you have is borrowed. You are not the first creator of anything. And I would argue that is the truth. I mean, as biblical men, that's the truth. We don't own anything. We are work and keep, as I've talked about on here before. But I think it can be really easy to get caught up in the ownership of the things that we do. And that's ultimately not what we need to have. It doesn't improve your ability to live life. If anything, it just creates a sense of ego and a sense of narcissism. In some capacity, we have to own something. We have to be the first creator. We have to be the creative thought that did something. And I'm not saying that you should be unproud of things you do, and you shouldn't take ownership of doing something well. But the point being is that we are not the original creator of almost all of the thoughts that we have, or all of the actions that we have, or successes that we have. The reason we got to that point, the reason we are where we are today, is because of other people who we learned from and we took stuff from. And that's kind of the idea. And once you start getting into that, I am the original, I made this, this is my stuff, and this is my knowledge, and this is my success. And that road inevitably leads to destruction and to just straight loneliness. Those kind of people are not fun to be around. And we're called to be humble. We're called to be kind. We're called to work hard. We're called to cultivate. But nowhere are we called to have pride in that capacity. And so my thoughts this morning are really simple, I guess, which is natural. I feel like I'm losing my voice. Is this crazy? Maybe I need some, you know what it is? Coffee. I need pounds of coffee before I get into the gym right now. However, for this morning, just understand that we don't own anything. And what we should be proud of is that we are willing to sit down, learn from other people, take that information, and then pass it on to the next generation so that they can then mold that, make it better, and pass it on to the next generation. Don't be so prideful. Don't be so full of ego and narcissism that you have to own everything. Your name has to be on everything. Make sure that you sign your name to things so people know that, oh, this is the kind of work that Jon Snow does. But don't be so caught up in the fact that you did it that, pride comes over you to too terrible of an extent. Be grateful and think of everything as like a community. When you make something, I wrote this book, but let me tell you about all the people that have influenced me, that helped me to write this book. Oh yeah, I just became the manager of this department in our company. Let me tell you about all the people. This is really our manager position because so many people have helped me get to this point. I think that's probably a decent enough message for a Friday morning before we head into the weekend. I've got oodles of golf to play this weekend. I'm very excited about it, so I can teach myself further that I am not the golfer that I want to be. But seeing as my message to y'all today was our is the way that we should look at things, it's everybody else's fault that I'm not a very good golfer. That's one way to twist my own words. I love it. Fellas, God bless you all. I'll be praying for you this weekend as always. Be strong. Let's get after it this weekend, boys. We'll see you.